Hi, and welcome to the Research Room, a space to make research by the people for the people.
Perfect synergy.
And today we're going to be talking about expressive writing and depression. So last week I was able to talk about just expressive writing in general, and that was to give an overview of what it is, how to use it, when to use it, why it might work. And so today I want to apply it directly to depression, which I don't think I have to really do much to explain that that's a super important thing, right? You even if you haven't or you say that you don't want to have depression, like you probably know somebody that has had depression, and maybe it's not like a full-blown like clinical diagnosis or something, but we all go through bouts of depression, right? Like even if it's just for a short period, we know what these feelings are like. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to go through a whole review article on this, and I'll apply it to a specific situation. So this review article is by Reinhold and colleagues. This was in 2018. The title of it is Effects of Expressive Writing on Depressive Symptoms, a meta-analysis. And so if you've been following along, you definitely know what a meta-analysis is at this point, but it's just a collection of every study that the authors could find on a specific topic. So in this case, expressive writing and depression. And they synthesize it and they see what the average effect is basically. Is it reliable? And so I'll start out by saying, yes, it works. There's a very like small effect, but it does work. But according to this, it seems like the effects really only will last right after the intervention itself, and not necessarily for a long-term sort of thing. So do keep that in mind. There's definitely things that we could potentially do to like increase that chance that it's going to work in the future. But for now, at least keep in mind that this is going to be a very like short-term sort of thing. And I think that also makes sense. Like just given how convenient this is, like I don't want to like skimp out on saying that like, yes, you should probably still try this. Like even if it's a short-term kind of thing, like that's not all too bad, right? Um, so what's happening here? So I'll talk about a somebody that you might have heard before, and I guess even if you haven't, that's fine. Like maybe there are some people on Earth that still don't know who this person is, and that's fair. I'm not going to judge you. But this is a conversation that I had with Michelle Obama. And I mean, yes, this was a conversation that I had in my head with her, but I think it's like really realistic. I think it would have played out something like this had it happened in real life. So I'm going to talk through her experience with depression. So last year, she was saying that she was having these depressive bouts of just not feeling good, right? So she probably had like a low grade sort of depression, which is called dysthymia. And so what dysthymia is, it's basically just like everything that you can think of when it comes to like major depressive disorder, but on a like slightly lower scale. So she still might feel fatigued. She might still have these ruminative thoughts. She might just feel a little bit more like sad than usual. She might want to sleep more often, a loss of appetite, things like that, but just not quite as intense. So she was feeling this way last year because of, I mean, a lot of reasons, right? I think a lot of people also felt similarly for similar reasons. That there was just so much going on in the news. There was COVID. We went, I mean, are still going through a pandemic, but like especially last year, like how much more intense was it? Then there's also, I mean, all of the political divisiveness, and of course, I mean, she's obviously in the political arena, so that's going to have that much more of an impact on her. And then also, really, like I think one of the things that like tipped her over the edge was the murder of George Floyd. And these are some things that she also said that having to witness that she would wake up in the middle of the night and just like have thoughts and like have worries about like what's happening. So even someone as strong as her, right? Like she's still feeling these sorts of things. And so like I said, this is a conversation that I had with her, at least in my head. And if she had come to me, and I think maybe she should, but if she had come to me and she asked, like, Alex, what do I do about this? Like, I feel so bad right now. Like, I'm constantly thinking about all these things. These are some of the things that I would say to her based off of the research. So, um, the the gist of what happened in the actual article was that they mostly found interventions on expressive writing that talked about people that wrote for 20 minutes, 3 days in a row. So they ended up doing expressive writing about like their deepest thoughts and feelings, and they talked about it for 3 days. And so um like I said, like it ended up working. So I would want to like share this advice with her, and I would say maybe just explore your deepest thoughts and emotions. You can talk about yourself, you can talk about others, that part doesn't matter, but just talk about what you're feeling basically. And so you can, across these 3 days, you don't necessarily have to write about the same thing over and over again, but like if you want, you can, or you can change to slightly different topics, but just make sure that you are trying to work through things in your mind on paper. And so maybe the 3 days are up. Maybe she comes back to me and she's like, hey, like, I don't really feel any better. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Like, I mean, I'm sorry, but like, it is fine. Like, that is kind of to be expected in this sort of thing. It's not that strong of an effect, but maybe there's some things that we can do to help. And that's also very much aligned with what happened with research, is that it's um, I mean, a lot of the time people do end up feeling worse after they do an expressive writing intervention, and that's because obviously, like, I mean, you're talking about all these negative things, right? So what can we do about that? How can we make that better? So some of the things that maybe she's also talking about, like, okay, like she's not feeling that, she's not feeling more positive, at least not yet, but she's also like not feeling motivated to like continue with this intervention. She's wondering if she's like even doing it right, or like, why am I just talking about the same thing over and over again? Like, why would that help me? um, and like, okay, like I hear that, but these are some other things that we can try. So maybe if we try this for 3 more days. And so again, according to research and this specific paper, you could double the effect if you write for 3 more days. So the original is just a 3 day paradigm, but if you have 3 additional days, you would literally double how effective this is. So let's try for 3 more days, but let's also try a few more things with these 3 days. I don't want you just to do the same thing over and over again. So maybe she writes it for that first day. She comes back, she hands me her writing, and I go through it. I try to see like what are some of the patterns that have come out. And so I might say something like, okay, like, yeah, I see that you're having a really hard time trying to just like go through this process with George Floyd. And yeah, I mean, it was a very distressing thing, not only for you, for most of society. I think like we saw how many people were motivated to march about these issues that really became apparent because of someone like George Floyd. And so I might say that you're not alone. Maybe tomorrow, focus on how you're not alone. Focus on who are these other people that you can go to when thinking about these these thoughts with George Floyd. And so maybe I might say something like, okay, like my guess is like maybe Barack won't help, and that's fine. But maybe Sasha and Malia will, and at least you have them. So let's try talking about them, see how you feel. So the next day comes, she's done her writing. She shows me her expressive writing thoughts. And so I do the same thing. I look over them. I say, yes, okay, it's very apparent that Barack was not able to help in this situation. And we knew that was going to happen, and that's okay. But Sasha and Malia were there for you. Great, right? So now that we know that you have your daughters, maybe there's something else that can help. So um, you're still very stressed out. It's good that you had these other people, but maybe there's something else that we can do. So instead of just focusing on these other people, maybe try to think about like other benefits that happened in your own life because of this. Maybe you want to think about like, oh, I don't know, like maybe you change your perspective on something. Maybe you change perspective on life in general. Maybe it's the way that you relate to people. Maybe it's what the good that you can cause now that these other things are happening. They're so apparent. Whatever it is to you, go ahead and write about that in this next day. Okay, so then she comes back and she is I think feeling a little bit better. Obviously, it's like it's not going to be that big of a thing. It's only been 3 days. This is such a huge societal thing, but she comes back and she's like, "Yeah, okay, I feel a little bit better now. Thank you for guiding me on this. I'm gonna just like write for a little bit more, and I think I got this now." And so, okay, so there's like a few different things that I wanted to guide her on when it came to expressive writing in this instance. What is it here? So very explicitly, the first thing which I already kind of talked about is that with extra days of writing, you get a little bit more benefit, and potentially you can even double the amount of benefit that you get. Um, the other thing is that with guidance, you are able to also help people. So the research really shows, and like I'm not necessarily a therapist, of course, like I'm not licensed. I didn't get a PhD to do that. But the research shows that uh, therapists are able to guide people. So if they are able to see what you have written, then they can start to say like, oh, okay, so like I see this. This is some pattern that continues happening. What about if you thought about it another way? And then they give you that advice. You try it on your own. You see how it works, and you continue doing stuff like that. And that has also shown in the literature that that is something that is of benefit. Another thing is that I gave Michelle, in this case, more specific prompts. And so here, for these prompts, I wanted her to talk more about like these supportive characters in her life, her daughters specifically. Maybe I also talked or I didn't. I did actually ask her in this situation to talk about benefits. And so and all of these are just to help narrow down the possible things that you can talk about. Because, like, I mean, yes, expressive writing on a whole, like if you think of whatever topic you want to talk about, like that does help. But with more guidance and more specificity, it can help just that much more. And so those things all would potentially help there. And I guess the other things that I might try is like even if all these other things weren't working. So we were also seeing that like she was having problems with motivation, right? Even to just like write it because like she was not feeling good. She was going through depression, right? So like that's a very understandable thing. If you are going through depression, like why would you spend your time doing this? You would rather spend your time not exerting energy or like whatever else, right? So here motivation is such a key factor that and so I guess how do you do that, right? So there's a lot of ways to motivate people. One potential thing would be if you can ask her to just talk to other people, like in the middle of this, like do your writing session, maybe talk to somebody else after that. Like feel some sort of like groundedness, be attached to like the reality of things, be able to discuss that with other people that like the things that you're thinking, like they're real, they're valid, and like that's going to perpetuate like, oh, okay, like yes, I can actually like write through this. It's not just like something in my head. It's not something that I'm making up. It's not something like whatever, right? It's not something that you shouldn't be feeling bad about. All those things, and so anything that you can like say to somebody and in this case to Michelle Obama, is that like you shouldn't have to blame yourself for this. Like just acknowledge that this is going to be distressing to some degree, and that is a perfectly normal thing. You are bringing up all these negative feelings and thoughts, but we're asking you to work through them. And so, to the degree that you can do that, great. But if you do become distressed, don't start to blame yourself because it's not your fault that you're feeling this way. It just literally is happening that you're feeling this way. But we're going to work through that. And hopefully by the end of this, you end up feeling better as well. So, um, yeah, that's all I really wanted to do here is that I wanted to apply this research article to a potentially real life situation. And maybe in the future it will be a real life situation, but we'll see. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think through this, hopefully you're able to see all the different ways that this article can really apply to somebody's life. And like maybe you're also someone who's like talking to somebody else who is going through like depressive symptoms, and like they don't know what to do. They're constantly thinking about the same thing. They're constantly talking about the same thing. Um, that's all fine. You meet them where they are, but like maybe you can also hand them this idea of expressive writing, and hopefully that'll help. So I'm going to continue this topic. I'm going to keep doing this for the next 2 weeks, but next week in particular, I'm going to be talking about expressive writing with teens. And so I think this article is great because it has so many different outcomes. It's not just depression in this case or depressive symptoms. Which like it also would have been very nice if this article talked about like the specific depressive symptoms and like if there's like maybe more effect on like certain ones versus others, but at least we have this piece of information. But what we're going to do next week is I'll do something similar, but for teens. And so some of the outcomes that they ended up measuring here is things like problem behaviors or internalizing or personal adjustment, social adjustment, school performance, somatic complaints, medical visits. So there's quite a few things. And then the other thing that goes on with this article is that we get to see who does it work best for. So it's not going to work equally for everyone, right? There's going to be some people that get more benefit, some people that get a little bit less benefit. And it's important to know that so that we know who to tell, hey, you should try this out. So with that, that's going to be what's coming up. But for today, that is going to be all. So please do check out the rest of our content dealing with especially expressive writing and depression all throughout this week. We had infographics, there's podcast videos. There's also stuff like blogs and write-ups. So whatever is going to be helpful to you, feel free to look at that. And that's all on the website, roomforresearch.com, and then also on social media at Room for Research. So until next week, thank you. Bye.
With the sun will breathe. Perfect